welcome to our program today on the Constitutional Revision Commission and constitutional amendments that are on the ballot this November. Please, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remember to silence your cell phones so we are not interrupted. I would like to introduce our speakers. Robert Martineau, who is a distinguished research professor of law emeritus at the University of Cincinnati, and soon to arrive, Representative Wingay Newton, who represents State Representative Florida House District 70. We will also have a special message from Mike Bennett, our Supervisor of Elections. First, Mr. Martineau. Robert J. Martineau of Nokomis, Florida, is Distinguished Research Professor of Law Emeritus, as I mentioned, at the University of Cincinnati. He is a graduate of the University of Chicago Law School, where he was an associate editor at the University of Chicago Law Review. Among the public positions he has held are Assistant Attorney General of Maryland, Circuit Executive of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit, and Executive Officer of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. His experience in the field of constitutional revision includes Maryland Constitutional Convention Commission member, secretary, and chair of the Judiciary Committee, where he prepared a 600-page report including a draft constitution, secretary of the Maryland Constitutional Convention, drafter of constitutional amendments on selection and tenure of judges for 3 state bar associations, drafter American Bar Association Model Judicial Article for State Constitutions, and a drafter of Drafting Guidelines Partnership for revising Florida's Constitution. Mr. Martineau has written 3 books on drafting laws, including constitutional provisions and rules in plain English, as well as law review articles on constitutional reform. He has taught courses on state and local government and constitutional law and legislation and legislative drafting. Please welcome Mr. Martineau.
Thank you, Chris. I will try to speak up. I used to spend a lot of time teaching in large classrooms without a microphone, so I hope you'll be able to hear me. I should say at the outset, the reason I was invited to speak here was because I wrote a guest column for the Sarasota Herald Tribune, and the title of it gives it away on my position on the work of the commission and its proposed amendments. And there's a copy of it. The title of it says panel shows how not to revise the Florida Constitution. As Chris wrote, I've been involved in this literally since I was in law school. The work I did for the American Bar Association in drafting a model judicial article for state constitutions, I did in 1958 and 1959. So that's how long I've been doing this. And I was very hopeful when the commission was appointed. I started out my column saying one of the best provisions in the Florida Constitution is the appointment every 20 years of a commission to look at the Constitution and to propose revisions. It's a wonderful idea, but this commission I was incredibly disappointed at. Number one, the makeup of the commission. Constitutional revision is generally a bipartisan or nonpartisan activity. As all of the states that I've been involved in, that was the case. Here, the 37-member commission has 33 of one party and 4 of the other party. You won't have to guess, or I won't tell you, but you can guess which party dominated. That's not how you do constitutional revision. It is not a partisan activity. Another problem is the experience of the members. While some of them had experience in state government, none had any experience in constitution revision or drafting or anything to do with it. The chair, as you may know, is from Manatee County, and his experience was nil. The person you would have thought would have been their expert advisor, the general counsel of the commission, was a very young lawyer who has held only political positions. His last was as counsel to Governor Scott, but he has no experience in legislative drafting, constitutional revision, or anything. The failure of the commission to understand anything about its activity and what it should be doing is represented by its final report that it came out with in mid-May, just about a month ago. The commission report consists of 52 pages, and the 52 pages are listed here. They have the revision 1 down through revision 8, 52 pages, and it contains only the text of the proposed revisions. There is no explanation, there is no justification, there is no explanation why they are making the proposals that they do. Nothing. And they have issued nothing. No explanation whatsoever. They throw out 52 pages of constitutional amendments without a word of explanation of why they should be considered and adopted. It just, in my estimation, just amazing. Another difficulty, which a number of people have commented on, is that there are 8 separate proposed revisions, and they contain 22 separate amendments. So they are combined in several different proposals in almost every amendment that's proposed, except for one. The last one, amendment proposed revision number 8, which is that wonderful proposal to ban dog racing. Just the sort of thing you want to have in your state constitution. Another major defect of the proposals are their length, as I showed you, the 52 pages. They are drafted in the worst kind of legalese. As Chris mentioned, I've written 3 books on drafting legislation and rules, but they all have in the title plain English. Plain English has been now for the last 20 or 30 years the model for good drafting. The drafters of the commission's proposals obviously never heard of plain English drafting. Plain English, the key in plain English is to, use common words, but the other is to avoid unnecessary words. Don't use any words that are not absolutely necessary. The proposals, and I'll discuss specifically one proposal, proposal number 1, and review that. That proposal is amendment number 1, contains 3 separate provisions or amendments. Number 1, victim rights. Number 2, judicial deference to administrative agency decisions. And number 3, the retirement age of judges. As you can see, there are 3 totally unrelated topics, all put into one amendment. You can vote for all 3 or against all 3, but you can't vote for any one of the three provisions. This is the amendment. It contains, this is printed off their website. It contains 4 pages. The primary one being, the longest one being on victim rights. The peculiar thing about it is that there is a provision in the current Constitution that was proposed by the 1998 Constitution Revision Commission. It was added to the Declaration of Rights that's contained in Article 1 of the Constitution. It was adopted and has been in effect for 20 years. And for some reason, and there's no explanation of why, the Commission decided that was not adequate, so they have proposed a revision of that provision. Now this is the revision here. It's 3 full pages in here, printed out. It's in the booklet that the Commission has proposed, that has published its final report. It's even longer than that, but the one that was on their website that I printed off, it contains 4 pages. It's three full pages. And to talk about excessive words, in the current Constitution, victims' rights is 6 lines and contains 55 words. The proposal is 146 lines, and if you multiply by an average of 10 words, it's 1,460 words compared to the current Constitution's 55 words. Let me compare it to 2 other things that you might be familiar with. The Bill of Rights in the U.S. Constitution, the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. It has a total of 462 words compared to the 1,860 in that one section of the proposal of the Commission. And some of you might be familiar with the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments have 179 words, just to show you how words can multiply. The basic rule of any drafting of a statute or constitution or any legal document is avoid excessive wordage. Every word that you put in a legal document, and particularly a constitution, is an opportunity for litigation. And what is contained in proposal number 1, the simple language that was before, what the language that's in there now is the language you would expect to find in a rule of criminal procedure, or even more so in a manual that some legal groups would prepare on victims' rights, expanding on what is in the Constitution. They've taken all of that and put it in the Constitution. And if there was ever a minefield for litigation, the proposal of the Commission is that. On the other proposed revisions, they all have multiple amendments in them that you vote up or down. Well, let me mention one other thing about the proposal number 1. The age of judges raising from 70 to 75, which seems perfectly reasonable, particularly in a state like Florida. But the other proposal, which prohibits courts from giving any deference to the administrative ruling that is being appealed to a court. This is a matter that doesn't belong in a constitution. It is a matter for the Supreme Court to rule on what kind of deference to give, and it would depend upon the nature of the proceeding, what kind of testimony, everything else. And it just doesn't belong in the Constitution. All the other ones, there's only one amendment that has one provision, and that I mentioned that, the dog racing. The column I wrote in the Herald Tribune said, vote against it. This is simply not appropriate Constitution drafting or Constitution writing. These items do not belong in the Constitution. There is one constitutional amendment that's proposed by others that my last comment will be that you should vote for, and that is the one to give voting rights to felons who have served their sentence. That is the most reasonable proposal that I've seen in a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And now let me introduce Representative Wingay Newton. He was born and raised in St. Petersburg, Midtown area, with his 7 siblings by his single divorced mother. Representative Newton learned at an early age the value of hard work, teamwork, and persistence. Representative Newton graduated from Northeast High School in 1981 and received his associate degree in electronic engineering from ITT Technical Institute in 1983. He is a management training graduate of Xerox Corporation, Microsoft, and Kona Leadership graduate. Representative Newton has been the owner of Newton's Photography Studio since 2000. From 1983 to 2001, he was Senior Printing System Engineer at Xerox Corporation. From 2008 to 2016, he served 2 terms on the St. Petersburg City Council. Currently, he serves as State Representative of Florida House District 70, which encompasses Hillsborough, Manatee, Pinellas, and Sarasota counties. Representative Newton's committee assignments consist of Government Accountability, Health Quality Subcommittee, Joint Select Committee on Collective Bargaining, Pre-K Appropriations Subcommittee, and Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee. Welcome, Mr. Newton. And please speak as close to the mic as you can because it's not working properly.
Is it just an intro, or are you doing questions, or are you doing?
We're going to do questions today. You got a little over 10 minutes.
You want me to speak close to the mic, but I don't know which mic, so we'll try this. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, my strength, O Lord, my Redeemer. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is great food. I mean, it's healthy. It's the way I dropped 40 pounds since I left Tallahassee. As stated, I'm Representative Wingay Newton. I hail from St. Petersburg, Florida, the Midtown area in Pinellas County, one of the most impoverished areas in the whole county of 1 million people. Was born and raised there, grew up there. Subsequently went to, graduated high school, went to vocational school, got an AS degree in electronics engineering, worked 18 years for Xerox Corporation, got a huge corporate experience, been probably all over the world, and came back home to kind of bring the stuff that I learned from the area that I grew up to put it kind of into action and service. So I got involved with the Neighborhood Association as the Neighborhood Association president, then ran for city council, served 2 terms on city council, and got elected to the legislature in 2016. We're here to talk about these the amendments. I think that's the subject matter. That's what I prepared for. And I only have one word for them. They're like my district. You know, I got Hillsborough, Manatee, Sarasota, and Pinellas. Now, I got to draw you a picture because you got 5th Avenue north in St. Petersburg. Then you go south all the way to the south side to the Skyway Bridge. Then you go over the Skyway Bridge, up 75 for about 10 minutes, and over to Riskin is Ruskin. Then you come from Ruskin, you go back down 75 into Rabonia and the Palmetto, and then you're in the Bradenton, and that's Manatee County. Then you go all the way down 41, between 41 and 301 to Fruitville Road to Newtown Community, and that's a nice contiguous District 70. It's the definition of gerrymandering. While I think these amendments are the definition of germanity. Because as you can see, this is some of the stuff that my colleagues has been doing the whole first two sections I've been up there in the first term. And what I mean by that, most of these laws and amendments are supposed to be single subject. And as you can see, just like the train bills they shove through in the wee hours of a session, you got multiple subjects on these amendments. Some good stuff, but some poison pills. And because of a lot of the poison pills that are embedded in some of these amendments, it's going to be hard for people to swallow. For instance, I'll show you one. You got an ethics bill in here, for they can put ethics back in school, which is a great thing. It's excellent. However, the power of the school board to be able to administer over charter schools, that gets taken away. But it's all under education, and one has nothing to do with the other. You're talking about powers. And or the separation of those powers. As you know, we're in a quagmire, especially in the northern part of my district, because I hail from where they had what they call the failure factories, the 5 failing elementary schools, and my personal testimony and disclosure that every one of my kids, every one of them attended Fairmont Park Elementary. I don't know how this is going. So we have, my wife and I, a personal relationship with those schools, because every year we got a letter saying how we can take our kids out and cut and run. But I'm happy to report to you that every one of my kids in the public school system graduated high school with honors and went on to college. And my daughter currently is the youngest. She's a third-year student at FIU, going to be a veterinarian. She's going for a veterinarian degree in doctors in veterinarian. So I'm just here to answer any questions and try to explain some of the stuff to you. But I can tell you on the face, a lot of what happens in Tallahassee, where I'm part of the minority party. As you know, the makeup, 79 Republicans, 41 Democrats. We get a lot of this stuff in the end. You get a lot of bad bills who can't stand on their own, and they end up as amendments tagged onto some good bills. And that's where you learn this phrase, shoot your hostage, because you don't want that stuff tied to your good bill. You can't get a good, clean bill through. And that happens usually in the wee hours of the morning. This here is very important. We are amending the very document that this state is founded on. We're amending the Constitution. That doesn't happen often, but I think when it does, it should be clear and concise and single subject. So I look forward to any questions you may have, and I thank you for having me here. Oh, before I sit down, I want to recognize my staff, because I'm turning over a lot of staff. I mean, Mr. Cyrus Calhoun is my legislative assistant for one more day. He's cutting and running. But we have Ms. Michelle Grimsley, who's going to replace, you can stand up, that's Mr. Calhoun as my legislative assistant. We have Ms. Cardinia Hardy. She's going to be the district secretary here in Manatee, Sarasota County. And then we have another young lady in St. Pete. Her name is Ms. Delphine Billups. She covers the St. Pete area office. We have 2 offices because we have such a nice, small, contiguous district. I spend most of my time with the Skyway Bridge, Sun Pass, and the fish. If only those fish can vote, I'd be all right. But I look forward to any questions you may have.
And now our Supervisor of Elections, Michael Bennett, would like to say a few words about the election.
I got to tell you, it was interesting. That's not what I expected to hear today. I thought we were going to talk about the different amendments. I'm not going to talk about the amendments. I said, I'm not going to talk about the amendments, okay? I don't want to get into that. I was never happy how the Constitutional Revision Commission went down either, but it's what we've got to deal with, and that's really what I want to talk to you about, is what we've got to deal with. We have right now, you're going to love this, an opportunity for a ballot that is over 3 feet long, okay? Our particular ballot in Manatee County, we have the rough draft of it right now. Scott and Sharon in the office have worked real hard on it. It's going to be 2-sided, 17-inch ballot. We've got one of the shorter ones in the state, so that's a 34-inch ballot, 33 feet where I come from. Miami's in the wonderful position, they're going to have an 8-foot ballot, okay? Now you talk about voter fatigue, so let me tell you what's going to happen. I'm asking you to talk to your friends, your neighbors, any place that you go, anybody you talk to, stress to them, vote by mail or at least vote early. We would rather have them vote by mail, because what's going to happen is these ballot is so confusing. People are going to go in there, and they're going to be in there, if they have not read it ahead of time, okay, they're going to be in there trying to read it and understand it and go through it 3 or 4 times because of the confusion of the ballot, okay? There's no way I can overemphasize whatever groups you belong to, talk to your friends, your neighbors, your associates, anybody, and stress to them to vote by mail or at least vote early. We're going to ask that you would vote by mail. Right now, as I say, we got a 3-foot ballot. If the cities decide to participate, and we are talking to a couple of cities now who have some additions they would like to make, we will end up with at least a 4-foot ballot in Manatee County. So we're hoping that they kind of keep their powder dry and don't do anything over here. But there's no way I can overemphasize this. Please get your people to vote by mail. Okay? That's it. You got it, Chris.
Supervisor Bennett mentioned that we didn't really discuss a lot of the constitutional amendments, so I'm just going to give a brief summary of them. There are 13 on the ballot. That's the most since 1998. 9 of the 13 were put on the ballot by the State Constitution Revision Commission. Amendment 1, is that working okay? Amendment 1 increases the homestead property tax exemption another $25,000 for the valuation of a homestead property between 100 and 125. Amendment 2, limitations on property tax assessments, is another proposal referred by the legislature that would cement an existing cap on non-homestead property assessments. Number 3 would give voter control of gambling in Florida. This is a citizen-initiated amendment that would take control of gambling out of the hands of the politicians. Amendment 4, voting restoration amendment. This is another petition drive amendment which would reestablish the voting rights to former felons who have served their time. Amendment 5 seeks to put in the Constitution a supermajority vote required to impose, authorize, or raise state fees or taxes. Amendment 6, the civil rights of crime victims, judges, and I think Robert mentioned this one, has the support of the bipartisan support on this one. Would increase the mandatory retirement age of judges to 75, would bar judges from deferring to administrative agencies' interpretations of a rule or statute. Amendment 7 is first responder and military member survivor benefits, and colleges and universities. For the military and first responders, they would provide college tuition for their surviving family members. And it would require university trustees to agree by a 2/3 supermajority to raise college fees, not including tuition. Number 8, school board term limits and duties. Public schools, these are 3 education-related proposals wrapped into one. It would reduce school board term limits to 8 years, expand civics education in public schools, and, as Robert mentioned, expand the state's authority to control and supervise charter schools. Amendment 9 prohibits offshore oil and gas drilling, while at the same time adding vaping to the ban on smoking indoors. Thought I had that off. Number 10 is state and local government structure. It would move the state's legislative session start in January instead of March in even numbered years. And it would create a counterterrorism office and make State Veterans Affairs Department constitutionally required. Number 11 are property rights and a removal of obsolete provisions. And that'll take some research. Number 12 is lobbying and abuse of office by public officers. This is a standalone amendment which would bar public officials from lobbying both during their terms and for 6 years following. Currently, public officers are allowed to, and it would restrict public officers from using their office for personal gain. And number 13 is the end of dog racing. Now, questions? Members, please come forward to ask your questions. We have a microphone right there. Anybody?
Hi, I'm Rosalie Schaefer. I'm with the League of Women Voters, and I'm a member. I want to talk about, if I may, what we're going to be doing to help sort through some of the fog of these amendments. The League of Women Voters is going to produce some informational voters' guides. We'll have the ones for candidates that we have all the time, nonpartisan information that we request from the candidates themselves. And we're also going to put out the Voters Guide of the League of Women Voters of Florida, the statewide league, on the amendments. And they will go into a little more detail than we've had today about what they say and what they will change. And we will also be using a PowerPoint program to hold educational sessions for the public during September and October. It'll be the first Monday in September and October at the Bradenton Women's Club at starting at noon. And and also we're going to have one at Central Library on the second Monday of September. But check our website, because sometimes these things change. If something happens and we have to move to another location, www.lwvmanatee.org, and and that'll have that'll have the latest schedule of these activities. In addition to the debates, we're going to be coordinating with the candidates and with our cooperators. Hopefully the voters will know what they're voting for. We just hope that they do study the issues and don't just say, well, I'm just going to vote no on all of them. That'll be tempting, but there are some good things in there as well. So anyway, if you have any questions, just let me know. Take care.
Anyone else want to approach the podium?
I'm Karen Grablin. I'm a Manatee Tiger Bay member. I heard your complaints about the process with this whole constitutional revision, and I guess my question is, what can be done to fix it at this point or ever? I mean, is it time to still do another constitutional amendment requiring that the process be revised, or where do we go from here besides just voting against everything if we feel that way?
Well, it's going to be another 20 years before there's another commission. I ended up my column in the Herald Tribune with a suggestion that some of the proposals that are sound like good ideas, they should be introduced in the legislature, and that's the only, well, you can do it by petition, or you can do it through the legislature. But some of these ideas are good ones, and they should, one of those two routes should be followed. There are many good ideas in here, or some good ideas, and they should be followed. For example, raising the retirement age. And I would recommend that interested persons, including the League of Women Voters, decide which ones are worthy of support and either get them introduced in the legislature or start petition drives. But we don't have to wait another 20 years.
But what about fixing the process?
I'm sorry.
Is there anything about fixing the process we should be?
There is nothing wrong with the process. I started out my column saying it's one of the great features of the Florida Constitution is that they have the commission appointed every 20 years. The problem is partisanship took over. And as I said, when you have a 37-member commission and 33 of them are from the same party, you pretty well suspect that this is not going to be a commission devoted to proposing amendments that would have general support and are worthy of support. So it was the whole thing was ruined from the beginning by the partisan nature of the appointments to the commission. Now, the Constitution does provide how the appointments are made, and it's done by the legislature and by the governor and the one ex officio, the Attorney General, and the Supreme Court has, I think, 4 appointments. But it's mostly a problem with the legislature and the governor, and they have to be. Maybe they'll be persuaded if this turns out to be a debacle, as I think it will, because they have to have 60% support, and I doubt they'll get it. Then you'll look at it the next time and say that's not the way to go for revising the Constitution.
I'll take a stab at it, because I'm one of those bad guys that everybody's talking about, the politicians. The way we did it over in St. Pete when I was on council, and when it came to redistricting, what we did was, instead of the elected officials sitting there drawing something that was going to be beneficial to them, each member of the district picked an individual out of that district, and we had the citizens do it. You get the 60% vote level that you have to meet for these to become law, but that's the only process you get. But isn't it ironic that the Constitution allows for them to pick, the majority to pick the people they want so they can get the outcomes that they want? I just told you about germanity. And if you look at the bills and the things that have been ran in the last 2 sessions, since I've been there, because I'm part of the largest freshman class in the history of the legislature, the second largest, it's the Constitution Revision Committee and the things they came out with are just like what was in there. You just heard about different subjects and amendments that have nothing to do with one another. So it's not single subject. So that's going to create problems because people can they can bring lawsuits like the gentleman just said on that. But the way you fix it is this: you put it back in the hands of the people. I mean, they'll tell you that we coming up with this, and don't worry, 60% of the people got to vote for it. I say let the voters they should amend the Constitution so the voters can serve on that commission. You pick each. We got 67 counties. We got 120 representatives, 40 senators. I'm pretty sure we can pick, and half of us can pick one person each to make more representation of the constituents that we represent. 67 counties, 412 cities, 20 million plus people throughout the state. Because these laws are going to affect everybody that live in the state. So since you have more stake in the game, except for hoping that the vote turns out. And the SOE is right. People are going to get discouraged. This is not the longest ballot. If you remember when President Obama ran, the lines were on the block. It was 4 pages. It was 4 pages, and people just got tired. When they get in there, they'll vote for the president or whatever, or they'll vote for the governor, and that's it. But not voting for it is like voting for it, because each vote that doesn't get is one they don't have to meet. You know, so it's to fix it. I think it should be an amendment in 20 years, because it's already up, that would allow the people to serve as the party for that commission, because those are the ones that are going to be affected by these bad laws, not the people that's sitting up there that's exempt from them.
Rusty, you have a question?
I have a question and a comment. As they have this number of members of this committee, there are 37 of them, and I think they've been waiting 20 years to talk about this. do they have a word limit or a time limit on what they can say and what they call for as far as amendments are concerned?
Wingate, you want to feel that? Or
There's no limit. They pick the chairman, and then they establish the rules, and the members will be able to vote on the rules. But you got to understand, the party in power controls the policy. So if you got the people up there that you put there, they're going to do just what you've been doing. And they've been in power for about 20 years. There's nothing against them. It's, the Democrats did it when they were up there. But all I'm saying is, if you want it fixed, you got to put it back in the hands of the people. I never feel the outcome of the vote. That's how I got standing where I'm at. So I trust you. but to his end, that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. Once they get together and they convene, and you heard there's 37 of them, 33 of another alphabet. But they decide the rules that they want. And even if the minority don't like those rules, they're going to be outvoted. And that's a democratic process.
yes, your name and
My name's Lance Spots. I'm just a resident and businessman here. I read in the Herald not long ago that 9 out of 10 people didn't even know that there was constitutional amendments being made. And to me, I deal with a lot of tradesmen, working people, and half the time I tell things to them, they're like, they want to know what I know about, because I have the time to read about this. Educating these people. Most of the people I know, they get off of work at the end of the day, or 2 jobs, and they go have a beer. They just want to put on the game and sit down, because I got to get up early the next day and go to work. They don't know about a lot of these things you guys are talking about. When a business changes something, they have to put a boilerplate in the newspaper, and it's all boring. Most of us just flip by it like watching the end of a movie and seeing the credits go by. Who watches the credits? Well, that one interested person wants to know this or that. Our democracy, going back to what you have to say about get those people out there, aren't going to get fired up if they don't know what these issues are. Is there some way we can educate these people other than your basic blurb in the paper? And it doesn't have to be, this is every amendment taking up 20 pages in the newspaper, costing the government to have to put that in there. Just something, most people are interested in 1 or 2 issues. The felon changing, the whatever it might happen to be. But that's what's going to get them down to the polls, and they'll know what's on there so that they'll vote by mail. Smart move. So anyway, that's just my comment. I really think that the government ought to be helping to educate the people in some way so that they know half the things are going on. Half the people I've talked to didn't even know this meeting was going on, much less there's a constitutional amendment change that comes up every 20 years.
That's a great question, and you're exactly right. The Bible, Hosea 4.5 says, my people are destroyed because they lack knowledge. What I've been doing, and hopefully each one of my members and colleagues have been doing, is town halls. I had 4 so far, and we got a 5th one set up for St. Pete. We were in Bradenton, Sarasota, we were in Rabonia, which is Palmetto, and we just left Ruskin. And I got one set up for the 28th back in St. Pete. And what I've been doing, we take all the information, you probably saw my staff hand out some of it. We try to educate the people and let them know what's going on. But just like you say, after working a long day, the attendance might be sprouse at best. But we try to communicate with them. I offer myself up and my staff to come out and talk to them in layman's terms. Because what you're gonna see on the ballot is gonna be legal terms. So if you're not a lawyer, you're not gonna understand it. Hear me now, you're gonna be standing in there with a ballot like the SOE said, that's 3 feet long, trying to figure out legal terms. And you never had one day in law school. But it has to be in legal terms, that's the law. So, but you're exactly right. My colleagues, like I said, they do town halls also, but that's about the only way if they want to stay attuned. I do them religiously. I can't make them do it. We have 67 counties, and you have representatives in every one of them. You have senators and representatives throughout the state that cover those, and they should be through either newsletters, because I'm sending out a newsletter too. I email blast, and I also show up in person to answer any questions, hand out information, because that's probably the reason you sent us up there, to be your voice and advocate, and that's the only thing I know. But you're exactly right. A lot of people do not know. They do not know.
Mr. Porges.
I'm Greg Porges, excuse me, probably the second oldest practicing attorney in Manatee County. I was sitting next to the oldest practicing attorney. I have a comment, and it's a concern that because of the manner in which these amendments have been prepared and presented, everybody's just going to go down the line and say no. Amendment number 4 is one that should be said yes to. This is the restoration of voting rights. The current system, if you don't understand the current system, is horrible. If you are a felon and you've done your time, you've served your sentence, and you want to have your voting rights restored, you have to make application. That application is then presented to the Clemency Board, which meets 4 times a year, and it does not have to grant your application if it ever gets to that board. There are currently 1.5 million felons in the state of, ex-felons, people who have served their term, they're back in society, who are unable to vote because of the current system. Generally, it has taken 5 to 10 years for an individual to have his voting rights restored under the current system. This is not what this country, this state is all about. So if you can remember Amendment 4 and vote yes for Amendment 4. Thank you.
On Amendment 4, it's even worse than that. You know, when Governor Chris was in office, he had this thing in place they call automatic restoration. So hundreds of thousands of people got their rights back automatic. I mean, you ran afoul with the legal system, you paid your debt, you paid your restitution, you want to come out and rejoin society. What a noble concept. But you can't. You know, I attended the Congressional Black Caucus, and it was a young lady that spoke. And she was a felon, but she made a quote, and I'll never forget it. She says, "I'm not an ex-anything." She said, if you had a fat guy that lost 100 pounds, would he be an ex-fat guy? She says, I'm a woman that ran afoul with the government laws. She said, I since then made restitution, repaid for the things that I did, and now I want to move on with my life. So I'm not an ex-anything. And unfortunately, because of the way it's set up, and it's been upheld, I think the judge's ruling when the governor's cabinet sued. If you don't understand the clemency board, it's the governor, it's Adam Putnam, agriculture secretary. The CFO was Jeff Atwater at the time, and Pam Bundy. That's the clemency board. It's the executive branch of our government, and they meet 4 times, like he said. You got approximately a backlog of I don't know, maybe 10 or 20,000 people in that, and I think they see 200 cases a year, maybe. So even in the 8 years they were there, they can probably get 1,600 people back their rights if they granted them. Because what happens is you have to wait 7 years after you get out. Now, hear me now, you didn't went to jail, you want to go back, your parole board saying you need to work and go back and join the society. Well, you done went to jail, you get out, you got to wait 7 years before you can apply, okay? And then maybe if they have a hearing, they may grant your rights back. I have horror stories like you wouldn't believe. Everywhere I travel, people say I'm out here, I'm working, and I can't even participate. You know, when I got to Tallahassee, this Amendment 4, I met with the gentleman that was out, the public gentleman that was advocating for this, and I told him, I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do what you guys do. I don't want to go for automatic right restoration. I said, I want to file a bill that's kind of germane to the Constitution, and it goes something like this. If you can't participate in selecting your representative, you shouldn't be taxed. Because the Constitution says there shall be no taxation without representation. So if you're out and you're working and you're paying taxes, but you can't vote for the person that you want to represent you, then you can't participate. So there should be no taxation if you can't vote for your representation. And it works because we got a lot of different things that we exempt from taxes, you know, first responders and law enforcement officers, spouses, we'll exempt them from taxes. So I was going to use that model, but put this in there to change the argument because the majority see this coming a mile away. Right now, this is polling and this is not to discourage anybody, but I have the numbers for that the Florida Chamber of Commerce, you might know that group, put out. They ran a poll already on all these amendments. And number 4 is polling at voters restoration, yes votes 40%, no 17, 43% are unsure. Now, I don't know who they call, but that's a little less than 60%. It requires 60% for any one of these to become law. So communication is key. The people have suffered long enough. I mean, I think they should have their rights back, and it's a shame that they have to go to the Constitution. You know, we shouldn't be amending our Constitution. You pay 160 members $152 a day per diem to go up there, and they got nothing but time on their hands. They come out with bills like put a stamp on lottery tickets to tell public gambling may be addictive, have $1 million physical to the budget. This is the kind of things we come up with. Too much, just like juveniles, too much time on their hands and misguided. I'm just saying that this is simple. This was very simple. If you remember, when that cabinet took power, the first thing they did was rescind the automatic rights restoration. That was their very first act. And now we sit here and people are suffering. They can't work, they can't participate. I got a letter from a guy the other day, he's out here trying to feed his family. If you can't feed your family legally, if you can't go out and rejoin society, you're gonna go right back to what you were doing. And we're gonna pay. We're gonna pay with affordable housing or subsidized housing. We're gonna pay for jails, or we're gonna pay for subsidized income so these people can live, or health care. You're gonna pay. Right now, they're paying in the jails. If you see the situation that's going on, we have 96,000 people locked up in the state of Florida. We have money in the budget for 86,000 for health care. You probably heard about that. So what they're doing, they're cutting out opioid programs, they're cutting out recidivism programs, they're cutting all that out of the budget to try to make that 86,000 work, because they want to keep these 96,000 people locked up. It costs money to lock people up. And it also costs another cost involved when you don't let them come out and rejoin society and be citizens that pay taxes and that participate.
On the question of restoring voting rights, I don't have the exact figures, but I remember reading that in Florida has at least 10 times as many ex-felons who can't vote as any other state. And I think it's pretty close to being, we have more ex-felons without the ability to vote than in the rest of the country. We are an aberration as on this particular issue. That is, now's the chance to take care of it, and I hope it is. But it's really stunning when you consider how different Florida is from every other state in the country. Thank you.
If there aren't any more questions, I will conclude today's program. I'll start with Henry giving the award out, Tiger by the Tail, for the best question presented to the group.
I think that went to Karen Graver.
And thank you all for being here, and thanks to our speakers. Just a few other announcements. Pier 22 does provide complimentary valet parking, which is especially nice when you drive up and there's no spaces to be had. Our next luncheon is Thursday, July 19th, and we will be having a political discussion with some of the candidates that are going to be vying in the primary. They can still file until the end of this week, so we don't know exactly who we will be putting on the hot seat. We are also offering half-price membership for the rest of the year. And for member information, you can visit our website, please, manateetigerbay.org. And thanks to our board members and program committee. Please stand. And members and guests, if you know anybody who might be interested in an upcoming topic, please invite them as your guest. Again, thank you all for coming.